Hello and welcome to the Cyber Weekly. So, in this episode, we're joined by Johnson Tomusime. Johnson, welcome to the show.
I think it will.
Yes. For starters, tell us who you are and why you are fit to talk about this topic of data protection.
Okay. So, first of all, thank you, Dale. Thank you, Angela, for inviting me to this webinar. It's been a while since we last talked about it, so I'm glad that we're here today. So, my name is Johnson Kinsime. I work with the National Information Technology Authority of Uganda. I work as the manager governance service, but I also serve as the data protection officer for the National Information Technology Authority. As you all know, the National Information Technology Authority has been supporting and basically uh, took the initiative or was greatly involved in the enacting of the Data Protection Act of 2019, and that's where I sit. We currently still host the Data Protection Office under NISA, so it's a completely independent body, but we still host it and support it. So just in a nutshell, that brief introduction took me, I would believe, gives me the right qualifications to be discussing this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Johnson, for that. And recent times there's a phrase that says that data is the new gold. So I think it was imperative for such an act to be passed in Uganda. So for the Data Protection Act of 2019, from your perspective, how effectively is it being enforced?
So, first of all, to me and from my experience, having the act in place alone has been a very great milestone and achievement for Uganda as a whole. So the fact that we've had the act and the regulation in place is a great achievement because it sets the foundation for safeguarding the personal data and also builds trust in the digital systems that we use. Of course, across the board, government, private entities are heavily digitizing, and most of these digitization runs on the data that we give it, and most of this data is
Mhm,
actually personal data. So
mhm,
the fact that we have the act in place for me is a great milestone. Then, in terms of enforcement of the act, um, of course, the 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 regulation put in place the Personal Data Protection Office, and it has made some important strides. This office has only been in place for maybe I could say 3 years, 3 years since about 4 years now since the regulation in the office was put in place. But they've made important strides. For instance, they have they have uh, done some compliance guidelines, which these compliance guidelines are shared and they guide the data protection, the data processors and data subjects and the people who deal with our personal data and how they're supposed to be using it. They also practice the registration of the data controller. So anyone who holds personal data and uses it is supposed to register with the office. Through this registration, it's an annual registration process, and then through the registration, the office checks compliance before they renew the license, or maybe they re-register a company after a year. And of course, in so doing, as they register, they do audits before you come back for the next year for the review. They do audits to check on how you basically been handling personal data for citizens. Then from that, they are also handling complaints for citizens. Now, these complaints come in wide ranges because they have people complain about their data being misused. There are companies that complain about also their because it can come from individuals, it can also come from companies. So in terms of enforcement, the office has done quite a lot more into first of all building awareness, training, handling complaints, and then these ones cut across both private sector. This regulation does not affect just government, so both private sector as private sector as well as government itself. Then, of course, the biggest challenge, because you also asked about the challenges for me, would be this concept of data protection is still really a new thing. So not so many people have actually been been not so many people have fully have comprehended it and fully understand it. So there's still a bit of a challenge in terms of awareness and basically how applicability of this. So you still have some companies probably processing data without being compliant, but the office is actually going out there. And of course, given it's a new office and the enforcement is growing over time. It's not really. First of all, there's supposed to be some awareness so people can understand the law fully. Then you can maybe expound on the enforcement. At least once you know that people are aware, and the awareness has been going on. I think for the last month we ran very heavy campaigns around data protection service. I'm sure you're seeing lots on TVs, radios. We did a
Mm.
conference where we had the media there. So awareness has greatly grown. So I know that in terms of enforcement, maybe in the next maybe 2 3 months, it's been growing over time, and I think in about 2 3 months we should have the biggest number, maybe 90% of the capacity of compliant to the regulation. Thank you.
Oh,
According to you, what do you see as the biggest barrier in terms of an organization actually adopting these new regulations?
Um, one of the biggest barriers is the first thing is awareness. For me, it's awareness. The regulations are not complex. These regulations have been made simple. So in simple terms, maybe if I can explain, the whole Data Protection Act and regulation comes from the general GDPR, which is something we picked from Europe. Now, when we're doing the act in Uganda, we simplified it to basically be more relevant to our ecosystem as a country. So
mm.
that simplification made it very easy for anyone who requires, who wants to, for anyone to basically subscribe and be compliant and know how to use the data. Already that step has been taken, but the key issue here is on the awareness. And I'm glad that we're here today speaking about data protection. I'm sure it's not a subject that it's growing, but it's not something that we're talking about 10, 15 years ago. So it does actually take time for people to really embrace it and understand how this actually affects them. So the key thing for me is awareness, and some people may not even be able to categorize what personal data is. Someone may think personal data is just about someone's name, but personal data goes beyond someone's name. In certain instances, personal data can be based on the situation. I can give you an example. If I walk into a room of 30 people, and maybe out of 30 people, one of them is wearing a red dress, maybe a lady wearing a red dress, and then I come and say I noticed a lady wearing a red dress, with black hair. Now, in that particular scenario, that description alone, because it's targeting that particular person, can be used as personal identifies someone. That's what we call personal data. So the key challenge, I think, is the awareness, and of course, from awareness, there's also institutional weakness. Some of these organizations, because there's no awareness, they haven't implemented part of the requirements of the law to have a data protection officer. In my introduction, I introduced myself as a data protection officer from Uganda. So the law requires that you put someone in the role of data protection officer who will, at the end, ensure that the organization remains compliant with the regulation. So one of the challenges that to answer the question there is for me awareness and those weaknesses in the framework where they do not have people who fully understand and can basically guide their organization to being compliant with the regulation.
Yeah, and I like that you talk about simplifying. Do you know, I've noticed not so many people would want to invest into like systems that will implement some things. Mostly like maybe the easiest thing is like the access book of like buildings and premises. You know, they actually collect personal identifiable data, but you find the book could be accessed by anyone, and you're collecting people's phone numbers, their names, their addresses, if they tell you the truth anyway. So with awareness, if you just start with like even just the security to just tell them how to just emphasize the importance of the data that is being collected and then rectifying from that. Some companies have invested into digitizing that process where you just like you punch in your information with with an interface so that not everyone can access the data and you can actually protect it. But then how would you enforce for people who don't want to do that investment? Because it really asks me to see that personal information out there. Or sometimes I am guilty for not maybe putting the right phone number or anything. But yeah.
First of all, and one of the key things is you as a data subject, you have rights. You need to know
Mm,
before you even sign into that book or whatever. You need to know exactly what the data is going to be used for. So you have the right to
mm,
ask, even if someone is, of course, there, like you said, some people have automated because of the collecting that personal data. Some people have known, some people you're writing in a book, you don't know where the book goes. So it's your right to ask. And in case someone cannot explain it to you, you don't have to give your personal data. But of course, what organizations have implemented is they have a privacy, it could be a privacy notice or a privacy policy where if you need to engage with them, you need to accept their terms and conditions. But then
mhm,
at the end of, behind those terms and conditions, they have done they have given them guidelines on how they need to protect that particular data that they have processed. So in this case, say you're entering a building. In most cases, some of the buildings that are very fully compliant, you find a privacy notice that tells you, for instance, we are doing CCTV. If you enter the premise, note that there is CCTV recording because
mm,
personal, those videos of CCTV is considered personal data. So by the time you're entering, that means you've accepted their terms and conditions. So such organizations, we check and see that as they collect this data, first of all, have they conducted, there's a, there's a, there's a requirement there's a concept within the regulation called the data protection impact assessment. So before you actually go ahead and process personal data for individuals, you need to conduct the assessment. This assessment will guide you on what the risks are regarding that personal data. And then you, as the person processing the data, will take measures uh, behind the data to make sure you protect it, like maybe do
mhm,
security around it, make sure the person handling the data understands, practice the concept we call data minimization. Here, you don't collect any data that you do not need. For instance, if you're
mhm.
going to enter building, they should just ask for your name and probably who you're going to see. Where are they getting your phone number? Why are they getting your email? So you ask those
Address.
questions. Exactly. So we encourage in your training, we encourage people to minimize as much personal data as you're collecting because the broader the personal data, the higher the risk. And with the law, anyone can report. So if you land on a paper from a building where you sign and you find it somewhere where someone is selling mandazi on a supermarket, you have the right to actually come to the office and complain. Because the
Mm,
process is that the first thing you do is to complain to the person who processed your data first, ensure that they either respond to you or they give you a reason as to why your data is out on the street. If they don't respond, then you can bring the complaint to the office with evidence, of course. Because at the end of the day, the office will help you, first of all, audit the personal data protection office will audit the individual, the business that led to the breach, but also in case there's compensation involved in this, there are legal charges, all that can be processed by the personal data protection office.
sure.
Uh, when we talk about that, most organizations will be like, ah, no, this is not for me. But what are the implications and where does it really rely on? And if you're looking at it holistically, uh, what does it impact and where should we start from?
So for us, in terms of personal data has no limit as long as it's uniquely identifies the person. That means that anyone who deals with it, regardless of the organization. So don't look at government, banks, telecoms as the key because okay, yeah, I know these are the key guys who we are always dealing with on a daily basis, but everyone else, the utility players, the fintech providers, the for doing loans, the banks, the circles, even your own LP sometimes has a record of the personal data. So there's no limit as long as you are processing data, and what the act does, what the law does, it puts you as the data processor. That means if it's me there when I come and get your, for instance, I could have your maybe we shared, yeah, for some reason we shared emails of that we were traveling, and then you share your passport details with me. I shouldn't be sharing them with someone else without you giving me the consent. So the responsibility is across the board. As long as you, so individuals, organizations, schools, hospitals, telecoms, banks, or government agencies, everyone has an obligation because it's now a law. So you must comply with it. So there's no limit as long as you're dealing with personal data. Uh, you must comply because at the end of the day, like I told you, there are penalties. And also, in scenarios whereby you say you're a staff, you're an employee of an organization, still, I've learned this as a data protection officer. The responsibility falls on you as an individual, depending on how you process the data. For instance, if you were a customer care agent, customer care agents have a lot of access to information. That's why when you call them, they know your name. They'll maybe you're calling a utility company. They'll say, okay, yeah, Johnson, you're calling us from Nansana. You stay around this area, so they have that data on you now. If that person is not trained or aware of the consequences or misuse of that data, they can easily maybe take pictures while they're actually at work and share with people. Things like that can happen. So the responsibility now on the law within the act comes to even the individual giving the personal data. So they will implicate the organization and sometimes go as far as what the individual who breached the data. So responsibilities across the board. As long as it's personal data, you must be responsible.
Sure. And children are spending more time online more than ever. How do the current laws cover ground in protecting them, and what are the critical gaps that need to be addressed in Uganda?
Of course, now what when it comes to children, I was telling Dale the other day, I'm passionate about child online protection. I think that's a topic that we will be discussing some other time.
Mhm,
As a father, and as a cybersecurity expert, I know the risks around
mhm,
having children online and the kind of exposure that they can get and things that we cannot actually control because we're not there as parents. So of course,
mhm,
the digital world has opened up a lot of opportunities. I'm not saying that don't let your children go online and learn, but as the opportunities come in, there's so much now. There's AI. You're trying to make your children creative. The truth is, they do learn from the technology, so we are not going to
mhm.
limit their access to technology. But
Yeah.
as as these technologies come in, the risks also go up. So
Mhm,
as a country, as Uganda, uh, one of the biggest threats we face, or maybe not even just Uganda, across the board, is for children. One is around the online exploitation of children by people who are older than them. This has led to a concept that we call sextortion. Sextortion is now basically luring children into doing those I could say, sexual acts without their parents knowing because they usually they all practice this build trust in the children and most of the children who go online are not monitored by someone or another. So they get online there, they probably just chatting with anyone, they're playing the game, and then the person just starts making them comfortable and they gain their trust, then they convince them to do things that they wouldn't do. There's also exposure to harmful content. There's also cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is the same thing where you find now child goes online, they're bullied by a group of people. It could even be through their friends, but they're doing it online and they become depressed. So all these, of course, plus excessive screen time, because excessive screen time now limits the child's ability to become creative because they're spending a lot of time on the screen and they are processing so much time. Research has it that, for instance, like for a young child who's maybe uh, the baby, we are only supposed to expose the baby's eyes are only able to process the the color toning of a screen or a video when they are about 8 years. That means that early exposure to videos and screen and colors actually affects their eyes. That's why we have a growing number of children who who start wearing specs as early as maybe 1 year. So these are all things that for me I see as risks even beyond the personal data. But because you see, children are young and they have this personal data online of them and they have this exposure, they're probably putting information I don't know that at the end of the day would be risky. And we have seen scenarios where you have with AI, you take a picture of a child and then you probably create an adult version of this child through AI and be able to even process an ID for this person. Now that's proper impersonation, which can happen to your own child. So the risk of exposure of children is actually high. I do not want to limit. I do not want the parents should not let their children go online, but it must be supervised. These threats are becoming more and more sophisticated, and people have even moved from the usual online platforms to of maybe the learning platforms, the emails and what, and they're doing these things across social media. So you don't know who they're going to find. Social media has almost a billion people online. You don't know who you're going to control. You don't know. They're not just interacting with their age mates. They're interacting with people who are older than them, for younger than them, for more exposed. So the key thing is monitor them. There are strategies that we can implement, but as a country, as Uganda, first of all, we have the the Computer Misuse Act. We have the Anti-Pornography Act, which also help in those areas. But we are in the process of upgrading these acts to come to specific child online protection frameworks. We don't have one in place, but I know most of the has been working on something. NITA also had a concept of coming up with the child online protection guidelines, and hopefully with funding, we should be able to implement this and push it across the board in the country.
Okay. It's interesting, and mostly with children who can now actually sign themselves up for these games, because mostly like the games, they'll ask you, are you above 18? And those obviously, as like a 10-year-old, you just say yes. So on top of monitoring, I don't know what other framework can be done to maybe like read facial recognition for like maybe those below 18 to cap that, but it's really interesting to
There are
see.
actually simple things you can do even as parents. I'm not here to discuss the details of this, but there are simple things, for instance, like if you're using Android, you
Mm,
can set up a Google Family account. Then you put all the
mhm,
accounts under that. So as a parent,
mm,
you have only children where they're accessing Google because it's an Android phone that means it's obviously controlled by Google. So every
mhm,
content they see you restrict. Then you put age restrictions on each account of the child. Now the child will not be able to change that account without your approval as a parent. And then the good thing is at the
mm,
end of the day you can come and see while you are at work what was the child seeing. So there are so many measures you can even install. You can ask your ISP to install certain DNSs. DNS is a domain. This
name
case,
server.
yeah, it's a server that redirects traffic to a safe
Mm,
server. So even if the child goes online while on the internet, they are blocked from accessing certain things. There are certain things you can install even within your home. So those tools I
mm,
can be able to share maybe in the next
with
discussion when we
parents.
are actually talking about these things. But those are simple things that we can actually do.
Mm,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. Now, let's talk more into social media and the platforms. How do they play a huge role in our digital lives? And what responsibility should these companies take in terms of safeguarding us as the people actually who are using them? There's always this confusion of right to be forgotten. Do we still see that as a possibility nowadays, especially with social media?
Okay. So for the if I'm to get you right, there, this you're asking what social media companies can do, right? Not
Mm.
individuals, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think social media companies can adopt is to basically have put privacy by design in their platform. So any developer, any creative, young creative or innovator coming up with a solution that might be a social media facing solution, they must have privacy by design. That means they must design their systems in such a way that they protect the individual or their users from exposure of the information. And of course, this can also be done through as you sign up, they warn you, and okay, they say you're about to do this, do you consent, what are the warnings? So that's how you implement privacy by design within a system and a process they're doing for an organization. So one of the things that I think they can do is they can design systems with privacy in mind, so that at the back end of the system, they totally limit exposure. So even if I logged into, for instance, if I and I think I've seen some of them do it. For instance, if I went into your LinkedIn and you have a right to decide what someone says about you, they may not be able to. You have a right to either
Mm.
expose your email, you have a right to expose your phone number, you have a right to say, I only want people that I accept. So you have a right to accept people. So we have actually been trying to do that. But of course, most of the other issues because there are good. There's a good thing about you being restrictive, and there's a bad one. So it has to be a balance between being over restrictive as well as not being over restrictive. So some people may not want the restriction. If you over restrict your platform, some people will go. So it has to be some sort of balance, but give people the option. Now that creates a scenario whereby while the social media platforms do their best to protect us and of course innovating and enhancing, we the users are now the weakest link because this, for instance, like Facebook, Twitter, X, and LinkedIn, you have all these permissions within your account, but none of them is actually using them because we don't understand the concept of data protection. So
The
for the
privacy.
innovators and guys coming up with these platforms, being have privacy in mind as you design this. Then secondly, you can also do transparent, just be transparent. Transparency means that explain when it comes to things like terms and conditions, like tell users exactly what the things mean without hiding, without making it very using very technical legal terms. So that someone will know that if I click this button or if I don't enable this private security, this is how my data is going to be exposed.
Mm.
Because behind most of these platforms, social media platforms, if I went online and I searched my name just in a different platform like maybe Google, it will give me my pictures across the board because I have less those, I've not restricted that sharing. But for some people, they have restricted that sharing. Some people even use different names. Some people use pseudonyms and not names. Those who actually understand and those who need to have a lot to protect. So transparency is key. Then, of course, at the end of the day, there must be some sort of accountability within the system or within the social media platforms. I should be able to reach out to social media company and ask them, let me see how my account has been performing, who has accessed it, in case I am breached. Sometimes if I'm breached, for instance, there's been a very common uh, situation these days where people take over people's WhatsApp. You're there and your WhatsApp is taken over. If you
Mm-hmm.
go back and investigate, probably through a group that you joined accidentally. So I need to be able to go back to WhatsApp and ask them, okay, I just need to understand what happened. Then go back maybe a month. I realized that I joined a certain group that I really didn't know anyone in that group, but I stayed in now. Somehow within that group, I keep telling without knowing. So key thing is build privacy by design within the systems, practice transparency, make sure to understand exactly what they're doing with the platforms, and then just be accountable. That's what I would recommend.
Oh,
By the way,
sure.
I've noticed WhatsApp introduced actually a new feature which can actually help with that. You actually first view the group before actually accepting it, and there are those specific features which they're actually incorporating slowly by slowly. I don't know if you've noticed them, but
Yeah.
I think they're on the right direction.
Okay, so onto the rise of AI and adoption of Internet of Things, and also the rise of deepfakes. How is that um how is that affecting data privacy and also child safety online?
Of course, now AI has brought a new AI, the concept of deepfakes, the Internet of Things. These have brought a new layer of complexity when it comes to privacy and cybersecurity. So we are no
Mm.
longer we're dealing with self, self, self learning systems, which if you come up with one measure today to protect yourself, they'll figure you out and then do just find a
Device
loophole
ways.
to exploit in other way. So we are basically entering an era where just because you see something because of a deepfake doesn't mean that it's actually true. I hope the
Mm.
listeners here understand the concept of deepfake. Maybe I could let you just because you asked the question, just give them a layman's understanding before I actually now ask the question around that.
Okay, me?
Yes, anyone, because you asked the question. So just
Oh, yeah, sure.
just
A
literally
layman's understanding of deepfake is
yes,
basically
yes,
it.
When your
So the best.
likeness is cloned,
Uh,
maybe your voice to sound like it's you, but it's not you, it's like an AI agent. Is that simple
exactly.
enough?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you could actually be talking to someone else and not be
I was going to give
Mm-hmm.
the example of actually Johnson and when
yeah.
I was going to give you an example of you. Maybe we are actually not talking to you. Maybe someone else completely.
Exactly. So the concept of difference is mean that you see my actual presentation, everything seems like me. The body language, the way I respond to questions, the way I talk, the voice, everything looks like me. But of course, there are ways that we can detect that this is a big fake, and we can explain some of those in the later awarenesses. But you see, all this complexity means that not everything that you see doesn't mean that it's true.
It's true, yeah.
There's fake news, and now if you're not aware, you're just going to believe everything. I saw, in terms of fake news, I saw last week, or I think Twitter, or something trending on Twitter that the president of this country was not well. But you see, all this can be categorized, but someone can actually take it and think it's a serious thing.
That's true.
So
Mm-hmm.
this whole complexity brings the concept of privacy and security on another level. We are dealing with things that we do not know. That's why in this case we move from the technology into now looking at how we can use maybe come up with processes and procedures on the governance side that don't really rely on technology to control what is automation or AI can do. And of course, AI
Mm.
models come up with massive automation. And with AI, you do not know what decision is going to be. With a human, you can control because the human will know if it's situation X, Y, Z, the answer should be L. But AI
Mm.
operates on a different, with so many data sets on a different level. You don't know what
Mm.
answer is going to be.
And the human
So
knows their consequences.
exactly. So basically, uh, with this AI in place, we have to be more as a country. I think last week the Minister of ICT launched an AI strategy for Uganda, and that strategy basically putting control. Like I said in the beginning, we are not fighting technology. We're actually adopting it, but we need to adopt it in a way that's actually safe. So this whole AI concept, the Internet of Things, just add new dimensions. But and if I talk about Internet of Things, for instance, right now in cybersecurity, we know that. So for someone to hack you, they no longer have to go to your phone or your computer. They can even come through a printer at home. They can come
Mm.
through people have smartphones
IP
where they get
camera.
connected. Exactly, IP cameras. They can come through bulbs. They can come through your kitchen appliances as long as they get into your network. So all these things for us they are good, but they basically expand the exposure for us to
Mm.
be faced by personal data breaches, if it's a personal thing or even a company. And remember, if you're breached as an employee, that means just expose your company because most of the things we use, our phones have access to our work emails, our laptops also have access to some of the things we do at work, or we go to work and also connect with personal laptops. Yeah. So AI just brings the whole dimension, but one of the ways that we are controlling it is come up with ethical AI governance. And the Ministry of ICT has just launched a strategy and in that strategy, we also look at it's not about technology, it's about setting up standards and procedures. So we know as we deal with AI, there are things that we cannot automate. There are things that we need at the end of the day. Even if I automate a process from point A to point B, point C has to be done. The decision still has to be done by a human being, just to control what they can do.
Sure.
So I would like to thank you for coming on the show. And one area which we have not talked about is is you talking about something actually we have missed out in this conversation. What do you think in data protection that we have missed out that is key for our audience to actually get to know about?
Um, one, I think for our audience, I think one of the key things is, in terms of data protection, I want people to leave this webinar knowing that they actually have rights to their data, and also understanding that, like you started, data is a new commodity these days. It's valued everything we do. You see all these concepts of AI. AI is driven on the data. It's the data that we deal with that is able to process and give us answers. So all these concepts of AI are built by the data that we give it. So knowing this, everyone must know that that means my data is sensitive because everyone wants it and everyone can use it for different things. And it's simple things. Someone can say, me, I'm a, I'm a, I'm sitting in Tungamo. There is no way anyone in the world will have interest in me. No, but you see, there where you're seated, someone might be interested in marketing a farm equipment to you, and you're a farmer in Zimbabwe. So someone might be sitting in China, they want to market equipment in Uganda, they'll go to someone who has that data, and where are they picking the
Mm.
data from? All these different apps you sign up from. So they see you posting videos of yourself, posting how you grow maize, the next thing you know, you're advertising the machine to you. It's not bad, it's good for business, but are you interested? Did you ask for it? So one thing I want the citizens to leave this webinar, just think before you share anything. Just imagine if you're going to put anything that is personal and related to you, before you do it, imagine a scenario where you find it in the streets of Kampala. Is it the kind of thing that you feel okay to find in the streets of Kampala? If it's not, then don't put it there. Or maybe make sure that the person is giving it to is responsible enough to show it. That's very important.
It also reminds me of when people say, "Oh, these apps are listening to us. All these devices are listening to us." Yet they're the ones sharing all this data around. It's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, any final thoughts for someone actually wanting to actually be in that position you are currently in at NITA?
In terms of career or in terms of just protection?
In terms of
Career.
both.
Someone
Yeah,
wants a
okay.
job.
Hey, yes, yes. No, no. So, first, NITA is an equal opportunity kind of organization. We have I think largest composition of the staff in NITA are say ladies, so we actually encourage ladies to apply and get into IT. Cybersecurity or IT as a whole is no longer something to do with a man's business. Now it is actually going on, and we're encouraging them. So anyone who's interested, of course, we always pick the best out of the best. So you have to have the right qualifications, you have to do the right certifications. I encourage graduates to go ahead and beyond the degree, go ahead and certify in particular certificates that would be more or less directed towards the the careers that they want. One thing with ICT is that it's broad. You can choose to be anything within ICT. You can choose to focus on any sector. I personally I'm into cybersecurity, but I have colleagues that I work with that are network engineers, people who are developers, people who are involved in business automation. I have people who are data scientists. I have people who are just business people, but they really understand technology. We have people who are very interested about data protection and privacy, so they are more on the governance side of ICT. So basically with ICT, it's broad. You can choose whatever, you can get into ICT and choose whatever specialty you want to do. So I would encourage anyone, just, of course, it's not, it takes time. You need to have the right qualifications to be able to, to basically come and share this kind of knowledge. So you need to take time and learn. The good thing with ICT, the resources are there with the internet. You can go online, man, then do some certifications, then from there you can apply. So like I said, once we go put into organization, once we advertise, just put it out there on social media, and people do apply for jobs within Nika. So anyone who's interested, as long as they have the right qualifications, you can put in. And ICT is growing. I think Nika started with maybe 6 or 7 staff at the time of its inception in 2009. This staff were even, I think it's Minister of ICT. Currently, we are 100 plus. So maybe in the next 3 years, it could be 200, 300. Other organizations, and it's not just Nika. Look across the board, private sector, go to banks, you find IT teams, security teams, 30, 50 people, 100 people, just handling FTP. So the opportunities are there, and I wouldn't discourage anyone, and it's not gender specific. Ladies, boys, guys, please feel free. It's a nice place to be. They were muted.
Sorry. Thank you for coming on the show, and I've definitely picked a lot. And I'll definitely look forward to having more conversations with you. We've talked of child protection. Definitely, that's a key area we could look at. Other than that, for the audience, feel free to tune in. We'll be having more sessions like this. Unless Angela has any final thoughts or question you would like to ask.
Nope. Thank you. Everything has been covered. Thank you,
Okay.
Johnson, for coming
Okay.
on.
Thank you.
Uh,
Okay. Have a good one.
Thank you.